This one, the latest Fox News poll, it finds 57% of voters under 30 say they'd vote for Biden if the election were held today. It's only 20% in that group who'd vote for President Trump. Cabot Phillips is with us, Campus Reform Editor-in-Chief. Cabot, those are terrible numbers. What can the president do about it in the 137 days left of the election?
Well, I think the best thing right now is to improve the economy, to get things back on track as much as possible. I think when it comes to young voters, a lot of the way they're forming their opinions is based on what's going on here and now. Many young voters, as we've covered at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform, they're not forming their opinions based on the issues. They're not necessarily going on websites, looking at platforms. They're not staying informed, watching your show every single morning, getting the issues. They're saying, what's going on in my life right now? And many of them, their lives are in turmoil. They've been turned up on their head. Youth unemployment rates are at record highs. Many of them moving back in with their parents. And they don't think of that as a problem of coronavirus and as a problem of this global pandemic. They think of, who can I blame? Who's the scapegoat? Well, President Trump, he's the most visible person right now. And so I think that plays a big role in it right now. Thankfully, there's a long time to go towards the election. I don't know if the Biden camp should get too excited about this, as ultimately you actually have to get those young people to turn up, and they are the hardest age group to turn out to vote. And many of them, as I've spoken to, aren't actually all that excited about Biden. They might say, well, yeah, I'll go with Biden, but they don't really know anything about him. And many of them actually feel like the establishment of the Democrat Party picked him for them. And that's not really going to lend itself to a lot of voter enthusiasm, which, again, is critical if you're actually going to get these people to show up to the polls.
I think it was Winston Churchill who said, a lot of people have said this, if you're not a socialist by the age of 25, you've got no heart. If you're still a socialist after 25, you got no head. What do you make of that? What that says is all youngsters are liberal, and that's the way life is.
Well, there's certainly more of a pressure among young people to go along with whatever the narrative is from pop culture and from whatever the world is telling them. And right now, the message on socialism is this is compassion. And that plays a big role in them supporting the Democrat Party. And I think you need to look at what motivates young people. It's usually social things. And so social pressure right now is overwhelmingly to support Democrat and liberal causes, because if you're looking on the fence and you're saying, which way do I want to go right now? You see what happens to those who come out as Republican, as Trump supporters. Like Rob, your last guest, just said, they see what happens. And they say, I don't want to be ostracized socially. I'm going to go with the path of least resistance. That's a big part of it. And also where they're getting their news. The majority of young people admit in polling data that they form their political opinions most on social media and on what they see in big tech and on TV. And those are spaces overwhelmingly dominated by the left. And so if they're only getting their information there, then it makes sense that it is going to be more biased, lead them to support more liberal candidates.
Cabot Phillips, you've got a lot of work to do in the next 137 days, but thanks for being on the show today. We'll see you again real soon. Thank you. All right, let's get to the truck drivers and